Okay, okay, and I'm gonna pin you, Dorotea, and here we go. Okay, great. There you go. Make sure your sound is good.
And I'll unmute myself. Okay, and I'm muted.
Okay, good, good. We gotcha.
Great. How's the sound?
I think it's good.
Great. And excuse my hoarse voice. I've been joining the nurses here in New York City. They've been on strike and now it's the 27th day. And every time I join a rally, I get really loud. So I lost my the stillness and quiet of meditation is out the window and I get really loud. So excuse it. And I love the announcement about plastic bags. Not all plastic bags are acceptable. I love it. I have tons of acceptable bags at home, so maybe I'll send them over. Um, Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's keeping warm. Thank you, June Roshi, for inviting me to do this talk. I appreciate the opportunity to share what I know, what I've learned about writing as practice. And like June said, I'm an immigrant from the Philippines. I do live in Brooklyn, New York, the unceded ancestral land of the Canarsie and Manse Lenape peoples. Right now, though, I'm in Amherst, Massachusetts. I come here most weekends to visit my partner's father, who is in a nursing home. So we spend Saturday and Sunday with him. After this talk, we will drive over there and spend some time with the elderlies in that home care place. After we did the Bodhisattva vows this morning, I thought of Charlie Picorni, a Dharma teacher who now teaches at Brooklyn Zen Center. One time he shared with us how I think at San Francisco Zen Center, one of the teachers asked them to say the vows, but replace, beings are numberless, I vow to free them, etc., replacing I vow to free them with I vow to be intimate. So beings are numberless, I vow to be intimate. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to be intimate. The awakened way is unsurpassable, I vow to be intimate. And it just, after we did the Bodhisattva vows, that reminded me of this thing that they did to vow to be intimate, which for me, the practice of writing asks me to be intimate always. When I was preparing for this talk, I was first just simply jotting down instructions on writing as a practice, you know, keep your hand moving, don't think too much, etc. Then the names of teachers just kept coming up. And I've been thinking a lot about teachers lately. Maybe because most of the teachers that I've learned from are either in the autumn or the winter of their lives. So I've just been thinking very deeply about them. About writing, I'm thinking of three teachers in particular. Natalie Goldberg, June mentioned her, a woman named Ninochka Roska, and another one named Lori Siegel. Natalie Goldberg, as you know, probably know, is a Zen practitioner. She's written many books on Zen life and writing practice. The first one of these books is called Writing Down the Bones. And the writing practice I learned from her, I began studying with her in 2001. This writing practice I learned from her is rooted in Zen. It's all about studying the mind, tending to our relationship with the mind. And one fundamental principle of this writing practice is anchoring the mind to pen on paper. So much like anchoring the mind to our breath in Zazen or sitting meditation, like anchoring the mind to the bottoms of our feet when doing kinhin or walking meditation. There's a kind of stillness and quiet that lets us settle and listen, deeply listen to what's inside and to the outside. I think I'm going to read something for you from a writing practice that I did. So writing practice, you don't think, you don't edit. You just kind of follow your mind where it goes. So this one is a 6-minute timed writing that I did, I'm not sure, back in November, I think. And the topic was, what am I an accumulation of? What am I an accumulation of? So when you listen in writing practice, there's no judgment, there's no feedback. It's just deeply listening to what the person has written. So please don't judge. This this is raw and unedited. What am I an accumulation of? An accumulation of my father's laugh out loud humor, my mother's quick, hot temper, the way she holds out her fist and says, bullshit, bullshit. Her lips, her lips are my lips. Her mouth is my mouth, capable of spewing vile things. My father's giving spirit and his care for all living things. I'm an accumulation of the legacies of colonialism, the psychological toll, the many self-hating things that I do just because I was conditioned to do them. I'm an accumulation of scars, the fingers, the scars that also appear on my grandmother's fingers, the imprint of a language long forgotten, the imprint of words and history spoken and written to harm or belittle, words and languages that we hear, whether or not we want to hear. They're broadcasted, they're put in front of you every day. The adverts in magazines, on websites, on socials, the big billboards in Times Square and down Broadway, everything seeping into my subconscious, telling me that I am incomplete, that I am unwhole. So that's just an example of the writing practice that we do. Kind of just follow the mind. The second teacher that I want to mention is Ninochka Rosca. She's from the Philippines. She was a political prisoner during the Ferdinand Marcos Sr. dictatorship. So before the Ferdinand Marcos now. She's a writer. I met her in the early 90s when she led a study session called Patriarchy and the Origins of the Oppression of Women, which at the time went way over my head. And it still probably is way over my head. Since then, I did organizing work with her, political work with her, theoretical work with her, or study. And what I learned from her, I learned many things, but the thing that stands out is dialectical process. I don't mean Ninochka invented dialectics. I mean, I studied with her in theory and practice, this dialectical process. And she summarized it in 3 points. One, the unity and struggle of opposites. Two, negation of the negation. Three, the interconnectedness of all phenomena. It sounds a lot like Zen, for me at least. So, in the context of writing as practice, of studying the mind, of studying the self, this dialectical process teaches me as the writer that everything is always in context, that nothing exists in a vacuum. This self that I'm studying on the page, this mind that I'm seeing on the page, is not separate from Philippine history, for example, not separate from you people sitting there in Oak Park, Illinois, and those of you in Zoom who may be somewhere else. Not separate from you, not separate from the air I breathe. What am I without the air I breathe or the land that I walk on? In other words, this self, this mind, this body, heart, mind is always in context, not separate. I want to read again something else that I've written in writing practice, just to show you how this writing practice works. This one I think I wrote in December, and the topic was what happens in January? Because it's December and it's coming up to the January, beginning of the year, etc. So we thought of the topic, what happens in January? What happens in January? The sun will rise in the morning and it will set in the evening or late afternoon. January has 31 days. 31 days with 24 hours each. Plenty of opportunities to make the right choices. Plenty of opportunities to keep showing up. Today, I was at Washington Square Park with young women in a group called Affirm. I don't remember what that acronym stands for, but it's a feminist organization, transnational feminist organization. Anyway, today they had a memorial, a remembering of all the disappeared Indigenous women and girls across the Americas. Also, all the disappeared women and girls by ICE. We wrote their names down on the ground. We recited poems. We had an altar. We had a candle or candles. We had incense. Plenty of people stopped and asked what was going on. And many wrote solidarity statements on the ground with multicolored chalk. We read a poem from the point of view of a 10-year-old girl who've been disappeared. And it was a list of things she will never see or get to do. Simple things. The poem goes something like this. I'll forever be a 10-year-old girl, and I'll never know how it feels like to have my period. I'll never learn how to put on a bra. I'll never go to high school. I'll never. It was a long list because, of course, at 10 years old, she should have had decades to go. The third teacher I wanted to mention is Lori Siegel. I met her in 2006 and studied with her from then until she died last year. She was a writer. She was in the first kinder trains that transported children out of Vienna during the Holocaust. There's an exhibit in New York City about her life right now at one of the Jewish museums in New York. And the exhibit is called And That's True Too. And That's True Too. It's from one of her favorite lines from King Lear. And that's true too. And that's probably one of the most important things I learned from Lori about the craft of writing, that there are multiple truths, and that in writing, as I deepen my relationship with this mind, as I study this self, the truth of my experiences is not necessarily the truth of other people's experiences. In writing and in life, of course, the practice is how to hold these truths together without judgment and with clarity and equanimity, honoring the dignity and integrity of all these truths. Laurie used to say that the task of the writer is to get it just right, to get it just right, which is to say, to get to the experience as close as possible, which goes back to being intimate, to get as intimate as possible with the details, reserving judgments, judgments that lead to abstractions and, of course, lead to opinions. So, getting intimate, getting it just right. What is at the heart of the matter? Or rather, what is this body, heart, mind? What is this body, heart, mind, and how does it matter? I've been working on a novel for many years now. The first draft, which I completed about a decade ago, was very instructive. I learned so much about my attitude toward certain subjects, about my view of the world, about my belonging and place in the world. The novel is about the Philippines, of course. All my writings have something to do with the Philippines in one way or another. And in this novel, I have these characters who in the Philippines we would call contrabidas, contrabidas or the villains. And in this first draft of the novel, I wrote them as villains, villains, two-dimensional or maybe one-dimensional characters. They're bad. They want to oppress people, conquer, make profit. When I read that first draft as a whole, it felt so flat and didactic. And I saw that I was still in the worldview of good versus bad, protagonists versus villains. And it did not feel true. Where are the multiple truths? These villains were once children too, who learned how to walk, who learned how to talk, who were conditioned. There were children too at one point. Maybe like the ICE agents in Minneapolis, like the people in the White House in Washington, D.C. And what were their experiences like? Reading that first draft showed me a kind of rigidity. Yes, rigidity. I was solid. I was solid in some kind of self-righteous opinions about the world, about people. And it showed me my blind spots, blind spots. And there are many. I've since been attempting a rewrite of the novel, trying to see how these so-called villains are humans too, that the conditions, the causes and conditions that made them who they are interrelated with the causes and conditions that made the protagonist who they are. Back to the interconnectedness of all phenomena, which is to say, the interrelatedness of everyone and everything. No one, nothing more important or less important. No one more human or less human. Of course, it is difficult to see the humanity of quote unquote villains, especially when the harm is so great. And I continue to lean on my practice, on Zen, on writing, to keep working on that, to keep working on intimacy, seeing that humanity in everyone. No one more human or less human. So thank you for listening. And I hope to have questions come at me so I can maybe explore more of this practice of writing. And also, I want to know how all of this resonate with everyone. And for the writers, I want to know how writing informed your study of the self, your practice. So again, thank you.
Thank you. I have the microphone here for anyone in the room who would like to start. Online, feel free to unmute yourself and jump into the conversation as you're able. Over here in the Zendo.
Good morning. Good morning, Dorotea. My name is Mark. Shishin is my Dharma name. I, first of all, really admired what you had to say this morning. I felt that intimacy that you were trying to convey. Can you hear me okay? Okay. That you were not trying, that you were conveying. I felt that deeply. So I do two kinds of writing. One is it's always flash fiction, very short, and it's comes out of nowhere. I don't know where the hell it comes out of. My wife says, "You're weird." Well, I have no idea. The other kind, and I'm going to answer your question, but I just want to say the other kind is a blog that I write on Substack that has to do with the way I'm looking at certain things that I've studied and read. And they can be, I always talk about them from my personal point of view, but they're also kind of didactic. And I really like the fact that you talked about the flatness of didacticism, and I realize that I really need to up my game on those and make them more personal, even more than I am. But I want to ask you, I want to say about, I don't know about the intimacy, really, that is in my flash fiction. I've never really looked at myself. That is a reflection of myself, and that's really an interesting thing. And I wonder if you can briefly talk about the resonance of what I'm saying to what you're doing in, I presume, your fiction, certainly your novel. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mark, for that question. First, I want to say that I learned about flash fiction or sudden fiction from Laurie Siegel. Um, and the beautiful thing about flash fiction or sudden fiction is that you just have to get it just right because you are limited, you're restricted in like 500 words, 900 words. So you have to convey an experience with that kind of parameters. And it's such a great exercise in intimacy. Okay, let's see. How do you do intimacy in writing, especially in fiction? In my experience, I have to get out of the way as a writer. I have to get out of the way and not think too much. I don't want to judge the scene or the setting with my, opinions about how things are. It's just seeing the details of whatever moment I'm wanting to write about. or the moment that is coming up. Just seeing the details as they are. And it's like the Zen teaching. Just this is it. The suchness of the moment, the suchness, just this is it. For example, if I want to write about my mother, I could just get really intimate with her as a human being and see her body, smell her scent, see her body. I'm seeing her right now. She's lying down on the bed, trying to take a nap because she's in between two shifts at two hospitals and she only has 3 hours to sleep. I can see her still in her white uniform because it takes time to get out of them and get into them, and she'd rather rest. She's still wearing her shoes, and I can smell the cigarette in her in her breath because she smokes like I do. And I can see her fingers trying hard not to be clenched. So you see, do you see what I just did, Mark? Like I kind of just that mother, just that. I see her getting intimate with what I see, what I smell. That's what I mean by getting intimate. And that's a way to use that sense, that attitude in our writing. Mark, did that answer it?
Yeah, yes. We could have a 5-hour talk about this, but yeah, thank you so much.
Hello. I have a non-writing question. My name's Adrienne. How did you come to Zen?
Hey, Adrian. Thank you again for that question. How did I come to Zen? I've told this story so many times. Let's see. So I um I immigrated to New York in 1984. I was 13 and one of my sisters, I was 13. One of my sisters, because she had to like, I don't know, um babysit me, but she had wanted to go to a club. So she took me to the club with her at 13. It was Studio 54. So I went, and from then on, I became a club kid. In the 80s, I was just clubbing. I quit high school and I was just going to clubs. I must have been 17 or 18, I'm not sure. My friends and I were walking down Broadway after going to an after hours club. Um, must have been, I don't know, early in the morning, 7 maybe, 6:30, I'm not sure. And while we were walking down West Broadway, there was a man dressed in a brown robe, handing something out like an invitation of some sort to some kind of talk. And we had a conversation with him a little bit, and he said, "Oh, you're welcome to come to a Zen instruction." We were all in this club gear. I was wearing some kind of glittery thing with some high-heeled shoes with glittery, what are spackles on them. And we thought, my friends and I thought, oh, we need to use the bathroom anyway, so let's just go. So we went up with this man. It was up one floor at West Broadway between Houston and Prince, I think, up one floor and to the right. And in that little hallway, after you enter the door, there's a shoe rack. We were asked to put our shoes there. Took a long time because we were wearing all sorts of like boots and laces and all sorts of things. So we put them all there. And then he asked us to touch the bottoms of our feet on this damp rag. It's a gray damp rag. And he asked us to kind of, clean our feet with it before we entered the Zendo. I remember that damp rag. I can still feel it. Enter the Zendo. And he tells us to take up one of the cushions. It was a small Zendo, as you can imagine. It's someone's apartment, probably in the city. So we each took a cushion, and we were so earnest about the whole thing. I gotta tell you, we were so earnest, so eager to learn for some reason. We just kind of forgot that was at a club where it's so loud, the bass, blah, 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 and dancing and all sorts of, drinking and drugs and all that. So here we are in this Zendo, sitting, being given instructions on how to sit still and to quiet the mind and to count our breath. I don't know if they still give this instruction, but count the breathing, like 1, 2, and you just breathe. And I remember thinking, this is so wild. This is the wildest thing ever. So from then on, I kind of, went back, maybe by myself sometimes. Yeah, so that's how I kind of stumbled in my way, stumbled my way into Zen. And I still kept on going to clubs for a couple more years. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great storytelling. It was like wonderful writing. There's nothing like a great story. As a way to, introduce people, pull people in. I don't have anything quite like that, but my wife and I visited Florida some years ago, and we went to a meditation practice one evening, a Buddhist meditation practice, and they handed us a sheet of paper at the beginning, and then they began reciting something, and it was the Heart Sutra, and we had never heard of this. So my wife and I we're reading this, and we're saying, what is this? What we didn't, not to ourselves, of course, but later on we're talking about what in the world was that, and sure enough, they do that every time, and I think it's great practice. But anyway, it's kind of like what you were experiencing, with these people that you had, thought were strange, and anyway, thank you.
I absolutely appreciate that. I mean, imagine like not knowing anything about Zen, going in for the first time and chanting, no heart, no mind, emptiness, no form. I mean, absolutely. It's really wild, our practice, isn't it? Like, it is so, it's so big. It's so mysterious and not mysterious at the same time. I love it. It's so huge.
Hi, Dorotea. It's June. Thank you for your talk, and I'm so looking forward to the workshop. And what you said about remembering the humanity of the ice agents, remembering the humanity of our president, that is deep practice there. So, how do you do it?
Oh, do I? I have to keep going back to, when I talked about the villains in my novel, to find their humanity, I had to kind of think about their childhood and how I kind of had to experience their childhood, what they had to go through, what they went through, what is it? And I think for me, that's one kind of practice that I do when I think of our so-called enemies, that they were once children too, and that they have family also, and that they breathe like me, and that they go to the bathroom like me, and that they have basic needs like me. And then I think of, like, what are the causes and conditions that got us to where we are? Like, how am I complicit? Seriously, how am I complicit in propping up this us versus them kind of attitude? How am I complicit in propping up this system that got us to where we are? For me, when I do that, I get a kind of a feeling of agency, so that I have the feeling and the sense and the attitude that I can actually be of help to change things. I feel like if I keep seeing people as my enemies, there's no agency there. There's nothing, there's no agency that I can feel through that. Yeah, so, but first and foremost, they were once children too, I think. Yeah. Thanks,
You.
June, for that question.
Dorotea, thank you for such a lovely talk this morning. I was thinking the same thing about how we demonize people we disagree with. And, if you think about the movies you really like, if they're one-dimensional, either on either side, the hero or the villain, they're kind of boring. But if you have some sympathy with the villain and the hero isn't, solid gold good, but they have some flaws, then it's usually much more interesting. And I heard this indigenous teaching the other day that really struck me, was that if you have a point of view, and who doesn't have a point of view, before you express it, think of 5 other point of views around that before you actually say it. Which I don't practice that, but I thought it was a pretty lovely talk. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Robert. Yes, I love that. And I will use that teaching. Think of other people's point of views. Yeah. which is really what, in good writing, you need to do that, don't you? Seeing the world that you're building, say, in a flash fiction, seeing it from the point of view of maybe the dog that's lying down on the couch, or somebody had a dog. Oh, Elizabeth, you had a puppy. What is that dog? Like it's listening to us. What in the, is it thinking? Is it like, oh, these human beings, these human beings are too complicated. Why are they making things so complicated? So in flash in writing, you must see the world in other people's point of view. Otherwise, it's just boring, like Robert said. Or maybe also so far away from the truth or truths, so far away from the way that things are really, which is, it's like the Indra's net, all interconnected, all jewels mirroring each other.
One more thing I was going to say, just the act of writing down without thinking is really a practice. Yeah. It's kind of based on trust, faith, and no fear of judgment.
Thanks, June. It reminds me of the foundations of writing practice, which is sitting meditation, which is walking meditation. And this, June, when we study with Natalie, when we have our classes, we sit. We start with sitting meditation. And it's kind of quieting the mind, reminding us that the mind is not the thinking mind. Does that make sense? Like it's not the mind that analyzes. That in writing and in life, of course, the mind that should guide us is the body heart mind that has experienced a whole lot of things in the world. The body heart mind that can listen to other people. So in writing practice, that's the mind that we kind of want to get on the page, not the thinking, analyzing mind. And the only way really to get to that body heart mind is to sit zazen, is to do kinhin, walking meditation, to practice. Yeah. And we'll do more of this in that 3-day retreat. Just plugging it in there. 3-day retreat in March.
Dorotea, thank you so much for this morning. It was just really wonderful to hear you talk. And I wanted to tell you, I have studied with Natalie for a number of years and went to Taos any number of times to be in workshops with her, not knowing that I was going to end up in a Zen center, 20 years later or whatever. But I have boxes of journals that I have written in where I've done 10-minute free writing or longer. And it now feels like a burden. And I've been agonizing over what to do with them. And so I started reading them. I promised myself I wouldn't, but of course I have. And I get caught up in them, and then that makes it very tedious, et cetera, et cetera. So I was telling a writing friend about this, and I said, I have to get rid of them because I don't want another human being to ever read them because it is so whiny. It's just all these complaints about my life, et cetera. And she said to me, that's what they're for. She said, so that you can get it on the paper and then go out into the world and be different. And I've thought and thought about this. What is so amazing to me is this. I have long thought that whiny person was the real me. And what the world sees is not the real me. And the act of dealing with this has been so fabulous because I feel like I'm integrating who I am. I'm all of that. So I can't say enough about writing. And I so appreciate everything that you've said this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, writing. Of course, writing involves reading. So it's good that you've been reading your journals. That's how we meet that mind, that self. Like what are all these complaints? And like you said, all of it is us, whatever it is. Um, and yeah, get rid, after you read them, get rid of those journals. After you've read them, yeah. And if you want to work with some of them to get something that is publishable, just choose
Yeah,
them, rip them out from the paper and work
that's
with
what
them.
I'm doing. Yeah.
Mhm. And also, I want to say that because this has happened to me, I have so many notebooks as well. I'm always saying, "Oh, what is that thing that I wrote? Oh, I want to get that thing that I wrote. Where is it? Where is it?" I mean, I've done that, and it's like, "Where is it? Oh my God, I got it so right in that time writing. Where was that? That was 10 years ago. Where is that notebook?" And I've found out that I don't need to search for what I wrote 10 years ago. And that if it's really in me, if it's really that important, if it's really, something that matters, it's always in there. And I can go to it again, maybe in a different perspective because it's 10 years later. If it's all in there still and I can tap it again and again, again and again. Um, and also I want to say about reading our notebooks and just getting to know ourselves and developing a relationship with this body, heart, mind. And when we read things that are about complaining, or things that hurt, traumatic things, and I'm sure those of us who do this practice, we've written a lot about traumatic things. And yes, sometimes we get kind of activated and it becomes hard. And it feels like, oh my God, the harm is happening again. I just want to say that it is good to get all of these things on the page, on paper, however it is, journals, time writing, on your computer, whatever, talking to people, as you know, just getting them down and reading them. Because after a while, you kind of develop an experience with that experience, with that traumatic experience in a way that it no longer has a power over you. Instead of kind of not writing it down and just shoving it in because you're afraid that you'll get activated, it will always, it's there already. It's already there in your body. So why not get it down on paper so that you can read and develop a relationship with it, and so that it doesn't have power over you? Thanks, Robin.
Yes, thank you, Dorotea. That's wonderful. Very helpful.
Hi, Dorotea. I'm Ellen, joining you all from California. Um, I just your dialogue just now with Robin brought up something that I hadn't realized, and that's my relationship with writing. And I've floated in and out of writing, more journaling. And I realize I don't question my Zen practice, why I sit, why I meditate, but I do question my writing practice and why to write. And you're kind of alluding a little bit to some reasons for writing, getting it out. But I'm curious about your story, because I love listening to your stories. Your story about why and when you started writing and what that has meant to you.
Thank you. Um, Growing up in the Philippines, I loved reading. So I was just writing stories. One, just stories about ghosts and blah blah. I used to read a lot of Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, um, a thing called Twilight, and then I read a book called come on, ay, 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 what is the book? Ah, Secret Garden. Secret Garden. I remember reading that book like in one sitting. I was in bed reading, and I don't know, something in me was like I could do writing. And I used to do scripts for school in the Philippines. When I was what is that, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth, I was doing scripts, and the my fellow students would act it. So I was the writer and the director at the same time. And when I came to New York, I came in March and school doesn't start until September. So I said, "Ooh, let me just start writing." And I did. I wrote 180 pages of a manuscript that I called, I don't know why I called this, Living a Life Worth Remembering. At 13. Um, and I was living a life worth remembering at 13. Um, it was nonfiction, but no one was interested in it. Like I remember Yellow Pages. Remember Yellow Pages? So I looked through the Yellow Pages to see who I can approach to publish this thing. I was looking through the I swear, I looked through the Yellow Pages, and then I found someone who said, send us your whatever, your manuscript. So I did, and they came back, and like there was a contract, all this stuff, right? But I was 13, and seriously, no one was interested in it. Like no adult around me was kind of interested in helping me with it or supporting me with it. So I just let it go. I don't know what happened to it. um, when I turned 18 or 19, I called that public publishing house and asked, I didn't keep a copy to myself because it was just on the typewriter. And I didn't have a carbon paper. You know how you have the carbon paper? So anyway, I had no copy. At, at 19, I called this publishing house and they said, I'm sorry, we only keep manuscripts for 5 years. I just missed it by 1 year. Anyway, so since no one was interested, I thought that maybe writing isn't something worth, pursuing. And for many years, I didn't write. And I think it took until my introduction to Ninochka Roska, the one of the teachers that I um, mentioned. She's a writer, novelist, and also nonfiction writer. And just seeing her, a fellow Filipina, a fellow immigrant, as a writer, I said, oh, yeah, that is something that I, as a Filipina, can do. So from then on, I went back. And she taught me about writing, and she had me type up her short stories. So I learned about writing that way from her. Yeah. And then from then on, it kind of.
Thank you.
Well, I think we're at our time, Dorotea, so thank you very much again, and we'll see you in March for our writing workshop. I hope you will join us, and thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dorotea.
Thank you, Dorotea.
I told Jackie she's the real deal.
She is.
Thank you, Robert.
Dorotea, that was a lovely talk. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I can't wait for the workshop, for the retreat.
Oh, it's going to be. I think there'll be a lot of people sign up.
So keep warm. Love to you.
Oh,
Bye, June.
Bye, Dorotea. Bye. Mahalo.
hello.
Who also?